Well, hello and welcome to the Terry Cole Show. I am super excited that you are spending some time with me here today. So, I'm going to ask you a question. That's how I'm going to start this episode. Have you ever been in an experience in a relationship where you're with someone who seems to be trustworthy, but somehow you can't get it out of your mind that they're cheating on you? If you had a past relationship where someone was unfaithful, so let's assume you had a past relationship where someone cheated on you, or more than one, and you're in a good relationship with someone who has not shown any indication of cheating on you, but somehow you feel like they're going to, or you act or react in a jealous way, thinking that they're stepping out on you in some way. Have you ever had this experience? Anybody? Raise your hand. Okay, so what you experienced, that is a transference reaction to something. It means that you are transferring feelings from the past, from past injuries usually, into a present situation, even though there may not be any evidence that this situation is the same as the other situation. That's why I'm calling this episode Now Is Not Then. And I'm going to teach you how to be able to identify when you might be having a transference response or reaction to something. So I'm going to give you a little guide, and you can download it at the end, of the things that you can look for to understand what is actually happening and what can you do instead. What can you do instead of acting that way? And before we get too far into it, I wanted to make sure that all of the ladies, the Canadian ladies, know that I'm going to be doing a keynote and a breakout session at Rise in Vancouver, October 25th to the 27th. I'm super psyched. I'd love to squish you in person. Okay, there's my little promo for Rise. It's one of my fave events. Did it last year. Mark Groves is going to be speaking. Danielle Laporte is going to be there. There's a million great people. It was an awesome event last year. So if you're around and you live in Vancouver, we would love to have you, and we will drop a link where you can get 15% off tickets if you use the link that I share with you. Okay, back to the content at hand, shall we? There's a great quote that I love by Christine Langley Oba, and it says, "We repeat what we do not repair." Should I say it again? You got it? We repeat what we do not repair. And that is basically the concept of transference. I changed the language. I call it a repeating relationship reality, or a repeating reality. Could be a boundary reality or a relationship reality if you find yourself in the same undesirable situation. Because transference isn't always bad. A lot of times we're transferring positive things onto people, right? Positive experience. Let's say that you grew up with a very loving parent who did not judge you and was available to you and really listened to you. You might have a transference and experience God or the universe or whatever you believe is, greater than yourself as a very benevolent, right? A very kind, loving God. If you had a parent who was very judgmental and critical and kind of mean, you might have a transference to some kind of higher power being malevolent or punitive or angry. And that is a kind of transference that happens also. But what we're talking about in this episode, and what I want to really share with you in this episode, is how you can A, understand what a transference reaction is, and B, understand what to do if you are having one. So let's start with what it is. So I gave you my idea, the identification of what it is at the top of this. So it's a phenomenon of another way of saying it, it's a phenomenon of redirecting, let's say, emotions that were originally felt at an earlier time in your life. Childhood is the most common ones that we repeat. But it could also be with a previous partner, as I said, about the jealousy example or about the cheating example. So it isn't just childhood stuff. But I find from being a psychotherapist for over 20 years that the childhood things that we repeat, the transferences that we have, are very deep rooted. So think about it this way. It's almost like you're a kid and you having a transference is almost like seeking a do-over, right? So it's like you're putting yourself in that situation again. Let's say you had an unavailable parent, an unavailable father or mother. You may find yourself drawn to unavailable partners because there's a part of you inside, the child within, that's thinking this time it's going to be different. And it would make sense that you would be attracted to what is familiar to you because in your unconscious mind, our parents become the role models for what a woman is, what a man is, what a mother is, what a father is, what an appropriate person to be partnered might look, seem, feel, or act like. So much of that has to do with what is downloaded in our unconscious mind in our childhood experiences with our family of origin or whoever raised us, right? Because it doesn't have to be your actual family. It could be foster home. You could be adopted. It doesn't matter. It's about who influenced you at that early phase of development, whether someone told you anything or not. It isn't like our parents or caregivers have to say, hey, pay attention to this, because as children, we just do pay attention to it. We're always trying to make sense of our world. We're always trying to understand the way the world works. And how we do that is through, a lot of it, what we observe. So, a transference, right? So we've established it. It's having a reaction or response now, basically driven by unresolved feelings from a past experience, right? So we're all kind of clear about what it is. Now, this concept is basically, I built my concept. I sort of extrapolated on a concept that Freud originated in like early 1900s, called repetition compulsion, where his what he taught us was that as human beings, we have a compulsion to repeat dramatic or traumatic experiences. Even if we would consciously not want to do that, right? You might have had an alcoholic parent or an abusive parent, and in your mind you go, never, I'm never doing that ever. And you might somehow, inexplicably, find yourself in that same situation. So that is Freud's take on it. Because I've been in the trenches with clients for a bunch of decades, I needed to come up with actionable ways and accessible explanations for stuff like this, because that doesn't help me. I get what Freud's saying, sure, but what does it mean to you? What does it mean to your actual life? How can it help you stop repeating painful experiences? So this is what we're going to move into. The first thing that you can look at is your response. So I'm going to give you a little list of things that might happen if you are having a transference reaction to something. You might feel more strongly than a circumstance or situation actually calls for. So having a very strong reaction and kind of a very hot reaction, an instant reaction also can be an indication where it's almost like a button has been hit for you and you have that same response, that same hostile or angry or hurt response. Another thing that you could look at is you might be having a transference if you find that you stay in a relationship too long. So what if you had a mom who was an injured person, right? Psychologically injured, or maybe she was an alcoholic. And the child within you, of course, loved your mom, probably still loves your mom. And then you get into a relationship with someone who also has an addiction issue. Your transference, that mother love that you had, that you needed. When we're kids, we don't have the option of being like, oh, this is messed up, I'm moving out of here, right? So we have to figure out, how do we survive in chaotic, abusive, addictive systems? Systems with narcissists, systems with sadists. I mean, listen, everyone's got their thing. But can you understand that you may then have a transference in saving yourself and leaving that relationship if that person won't save themselves, because it isn't just your love in the present for that person. if you're having a transference to them because they remind you of your mom, you would be paralyzed and kind of not be able to move or move away from them. The same way that as children, we are not able to decide we're going to disown our parents. Even if we want to emotionally, we can't actually do it because we are fully dependent on them. So I wanted to give you that nuance of how transference can look like in a relationship if you stay too long. Being obsessed with another person might also indicate a transference, and having like unexplained attraction to someone or unexplained repulsion to someone. Both of those things can indicate that they are really reminding you of an earlier situation or an earlier person. And also taking things very personally. Thinking if you're having a transference to someone, you will basically make up a script of why they're doing what they're doing if it's a transference to an old experience, the same way you did as a child. So you may feel like, well, my father hated me, or he rejected me, or he didn't care about me. And then if someone reminds you of your dad, even if you're grown up, you may be like, I don't know why, but I think that he just doesn't like me. That could be a transference. It could be based on an old unresolved feeling, not on anything that's actually happening right now in the moment. So move into what are the things that you can do. So those are some of the ways that you can tell if you're having a transference. But what do you do if you are? Those of you who've done courses with me or have been in my community for a long time, you know that I talk about the 3 cues, which are the 3 questions that you can ask yourself to try to identify if you are having a transference experience. And if you are, who is the original injury from? That's what these 3 questions that I'm going to tell you right now will help you to discern what is actually going on. The first one is, who does this person remind me of? Right? Sounds simple, is simple, but it's a very powerful question if you ask yourself that question in the right moment. So who does this person remind me of? The second question is, where have I felt like this before? And the third question is, why is this behavioral dynamic, how I'm interacting with this person, why is it familiar to me? And if you actually sat with those questions and potentially journaled about them, if you were in a repeated situation you didn't want to be in, you'd be able to shed some light on what you might be repeating, what relationship, what injury you might be repeating, meaning what transference is happening right there in that relationship. Another question that you can add to the end of the 3 questions to ask is, when I'm interacting with this person this way or responding to them in this way, who do they become and who do I become? So to explain that a little bit further, you might become your 10-year-old self, even though you're grown up, with a boss who reminds you of a punitive or authoritarian parent. So the boss becomes the parent, you become your 10-year-old self. So if you've ever had the experience, if you have issues with authority or fear of authority because you came from that kind of a system, when you get into a situation with someone who actually has power over you, or even just someone who feels entitled to have power over you, it doesn't even have to be your boss. Have you ever had the experience where you can't find words? It's almost like your adult vocabulary reverts back to your 10-year-old vocabulary, or you get stuck in that freeze. That when we feel threatened, right? You've heard of fight, flight, freeze, that you just can't say anything and you're just sort of stuck there, which is why it's really important that we start to understand who in our lives are we basically dragging the past into our present in a way that we really, really don't want to, because there's nothing good that comes from that experience. So you can use the 3 questions and then that 4th sort of additional question to try to get to what is actually happening in that moment and who does the person remind you of. Because we're sort of looking at this from the point of view of, if you cannot keep yourself in this present moment, because when you're having a transference, it literally means the unresolved pain or the charged emotions from the past are dragging you backwards in time, that does not help us build the life or the relationships in this present moment that we want. So another really important thing that you can do is you have to flex your present moment awareness muscle, right? Your ability to be here now. How do you do that? Breathing exercises, grounding exercises. You can just look them up on Google. There's a million of them. And having a dedicated meditation practice. This is something that really expands your capability to be in this present moment. And it's not hard and it's not scary. And I have tons of free ones online and we'll give you one right in this episode of the Terry Cole Show. Please, you know this. If you have a butt, you have a couch. You're a meditator, my friend. So don't think that it's for other people. And even if it's difficult for you, that's why I would start by giving you a guided meditation, because then you're at least listening to something and you're not just left with the silence in your mind with all of your thoughts rolling around. And it really is something you have to practice. That's why we call it a practice. It isn't something you just become an expert meditator the same way that we go to the gym. We don't go to the gym once and we're like, oh my God, perfect butt right now. I got it from going to the gym once. No, do we? No. We go to the gym in a dedicated way if we expect to be and stay healthy. This is the same thing. So part of it is reframing your mind about what meditation means. It means dedicating a certain amount of time. Start with a minute. I'll give you a short meditation. They're all under 10 minutes. But start with just hitting play. Light a candle. Create sacred space in your morning routine. Add 10 minutes. People say they're too busy, they're too tired, they're too whatever. You know what? If I told you that I would give you $5 million in cash at the end of 30 days that you meditated for 5 minutes a day, I'm pretty sure you could figure out how to do it. No? Anybody? Anybody who wouldn't figure it out for $5 million in cash? I'm going to say you would. So if you were to prioritize this, and I want to inspire you too, because it is such a deal changer. It changed my life and so many of the people, so many of my clients. It's a part of everything that I teach, meditation, because it's that important. So I really am challenging you to just try 7 days in a row. Just try it. I'm providing the meditation. Friggin' hit play. Sit up in your bed, light a candle, close your eyes, and just listen to my voice. That's all you gotta do. And see what shifts for you. Because I believe that you will gain response time or reaction time. And even if it's just 2 seconds, that's enough time to literally change your life. Because don't you want to be responding and reacting in your relationships, in your career, from this present moment? Because when we are having a transference, a negative transference that is, a transference to something painful, we're really putting ourselves in a weakened position, which I don't want you to do, right? I want you to come from this place of strength so that you can build a life that truly thrills you, a life and relationships that really do thrill you. So I would love to hear what you have to say about this episode. If it added any value, if it inspired you to meditate, please share it on your social media platforms. And those of you, if you are not subscribed to my YouTube channel and you're watching this here, please do subscribe. If you are listening to my podcast and you love it, please go give me a good rating. We're trying to get to 1,000 5-star ratings on the podcast. Do it. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I super appreciate you being a part of my crew. I hope you have an amazing week. And as always, take care of you.